I was devastated to learn recently that technically speaking I am a VTuber, or at least a PNG tuber. A younger relation of mine informed me of this, as I was too much of a decrepit old fuck to know what that means. Naturally, I decided that I would research my competition and I came across this. Oh, I'm so fucked! Naturally, the only way I can feel good about myself is to take other people down with me, so join me on this journey as I shit-talk your favourite imaginary waifus and husbandos, new words to me entirely. All those getting it are featured here, so I can cynically increase my viewer engagement numbers and force people to watch the whole thing. And no, I won't put timestamps, you can fuck right off. Watch the whole thing. Okay, I know I just told you to fuck right off, but feel free to subscribe and unsubscribe when I shit-talk your favourite VTuber. After my little peek at the statistics of VTubers, I felt that it was my civic duty to share what I've learned. Of just the VTubers featured in this video, their total followers and subscribers surpasses the number of 44 million. Thus, I have decided to pass on this number to the World Health Organization, so that they can accurately know how many mothers smoked crack during their pregnancies. VTubing in its traditional sense comes from the long-held notion ingrained into the core of humanity to simply want what we can't have. Whether it be money, status, power, or that momentary yet elusive serotonin molecule, in the case of VTubers it means interacting with anime characters. As I'm clinically depressed and thus serotonin is about as familiar to me as a Brazilian model's ab sweat, it's therefore quite novel to me to see people actually enjoy things. In this case, giving money to anime girls. Anime, for those whom have stumbled across this video like a jogger finding a murdered corpse, is the medium of animation predominantly made in Japan. People have especially latched onto anime characters and formed fandoms around certain figures that often become sexualized or focused on just how goddamn cute they are. These type of parasocial relationships, which I'm absolutely sure is an extensive government psyop. Oh, you want evidence? Look at this, you fool, and tell me I'm wrong. Bet you feel stupid now, don't you? Anyway, what I'm saying is that whilst book nerds had to imagine themselves being rule dogged by their favourite hunk, and celebrity freaks had to settle for Photoshop, by slapping an anime girl or boy onto a pillow, you can cry yourself to sleep that little bit easier. Naturally, this has consequently made it far easier for the CIA to use this intelligence to create a database that sits right alongside the Global Terror Watch List and Interpol's Most Wanted, simply being called a fucking deviant. As technology exploded into the modern era, new creatures began to emerge. Using face, body, and most importantly, titty-jiggling physics, the era of VTubers has truly blossomed, and by blossomed, I mean like the first opium harvest used to make heroin. Along with drill music and whippets, VTubers are another plague on the youth, and I say that as the bubonic sort myself. A disease that you don't even have to have sex to get, ergo, not even a good one. I'm therefore extremely qualified to undertake this endeavour. My mum has been making me watch a programme about building an international K-pop group, and there is an extreme level of similarity, as the formula seems to have been copied and pasted for this new medium. Much like record labels that have large groups, subdivisions and subdivisions upon subdivisions, VTubers have to sort of do these teaser trailers, where they do something called debut. Before I show you what these look like, I want to get serious for a second, and remind you of some legality. In 1987, in accordance with Article 27.1, the UN General Assembly adopted into law, in regards to Article 5 on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that no one should be subjected to torture, cruelty, degrading treatment or punishment. With that being said, watch as this law is utterly shattered.
Give me a P! Give me an O! Give me an M-A! What does that spell? Come to my debut! Come to my debut! Come to my debut! Come to my debut!
Distilling a personality over a span of a minute is an incredibly difficult feat. For people like me, however, you can simply roll a piece of text repeating the word dickhead and that would suffice just fine. These carefully crafted features for optimum viewer engagement led me down quite the rabbit hole. My YouTube algorithm is, I can say with complete certainty, totally and utterly fucked. My research for this video has had my feed absolutely inundated with these debuts, which are as close as you can get to sarin gas poisoning without doing a war crime. It's said that during the horrible treatment of the prisoners of Guantanamo Bay, that even the guards who were fine with daily beatings and tortures were asked by the CIA to make detainees watch debut videos, to which the guards said, whoa, 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 that's too much. We'll just stick to pulling off nails with pliers, thank you very much. The first VTuber is apparently known as Kizuna Ai. I actually saw this creature before when I saw a trailer on the PlayStation channel, and my reaction remains the same as it was then, aka, what is this shit? Thinking it was just a new iteration of Dance Dance Revolution, which surprisingly isn't that Fall Out Boy song, but involves silly cunts doing things like this. With some pretty big songs to her name, I must state early on that Japanese pop music makes me want to look for the nearest high-rise or a fatal-looking cliff to jump off. Kizuna Ai is a pioneer of VTubing in the same way that an old miner using dynamite is, or a caveman eating mushrooms until they die, namely finding something valuable and knowing when it's over. Kizuna pulled what I like to call the Euron Greyjoy manoeuvre, where he saw the monster, aka the industry, and promptly fucked off. Respect. This little history lesson led me to the concept of graduation, where a VTuber leaves their current company to go make money for themselves or another company. This I was particularly sad to hear, as the idea of graduating and absolutely decimating the prom queen was quite appealing to me. Kitsune-chan, who I've just made up, is going to be graduating, and is going to get financial independence from us. Better go get another VTuber to leech off. This has led to the idea of intake groups joining academies, where they can learn to cultivate a loyal band of mouth breathers and make absolutely no money while they're at it. My favourite part of this process is when they were given groups with exotic foreign names, that kind of sound like skateboarding parts though way less gnarly. Sick. This includes the likes of Rizion, and the introduction of Onikama, Mitu and Fwopi, Obsidius, Rosemi Lovelock, Petra Gurin and Selen Tatsuki, or Lazulites Pomu Rainpuff, Elira Pandora, and Fianna Ryuga. For the unacquainted, I've made one of these groups up, and you have to guess which. By forming groups like Zebra or Wildebeest to stave off the ever-present threat of relevancy and predatory corporate interest, like unions but kawaii, some of these unofficial groups aim to support each other like Chinese scaffolders, perilously balancing stakeholder interests, audiences, and avoiding plummeting to their deaths. I'm going to cover the first VTubers I saw, and some of the biggest VTubers out there, and if you have any complaints about my comments, feel free to go down to the comments, or call 0800 go fuck yourself bozo. The first VTuber I ever saw was Ironmouse, at the Twitch streamer charity auction that Connor hosted, and yes, I'm going to say his name like I know him. Connor talked about raising money for a cause related to her very difficult health condition that has at times made her bedbound. I can personally say that I relate to this, as I've been confined to my bed too, on account of just being a fat bastard. Connor is known for being Ironmouse's virtual husband, and quite frankly, she's living the dream. Just look at him. The second VTuber I saw was this Mothra-looking ass woman known as Matara, appearing with Bricky after reacting to some of his Warhammer content. When I first saw her, my initial impression was ah! Gawr Gura is an English-speaking member of Hololive, whose natural enemy is propeller blades. She is essentially exactly what I thought VTubers would be. Seen here performing Take Me Out to the Ball Game with the same gusto as a dying gerbil, with an appeal of she's just a little guy. If you're older than 16 and watch her, I suggest that you microwave your hard drive before the FBI show up. Here is a handy chart that I've created that will place VTubers on a tier list relative to each new one that enters, with categories including shit, honey we've got you a counsellor, you do you champ, technically acceptable, and based. Currently we have Ironmouse, Mothra, and Gawr Gura. Please bear in mind that all of this is my opinion, and although this is the point where the content creator begs their audience to absolutely not flip out, I'm going to do the opposite and tell you that you're objectively wrong with two possible schools of thought, aka wrong and aka what I think. Honshou Marine is a full Japanese speaking YouTuber, making my roughly 30 seconds of watch time even more harder to place on my list. Honshou, seen here suppressing Taliban positions, was first deployed to Helmand province in Afghanistan as part of Royal Marines Free Commando. On the basis of her military service, I've decided to not put her in the firmly shit category, but she won't be moving until she learns from America, and I tell you what. In my continued effort to alienate the exact people I want to watch my other videos, I'm going to rag on another Japanese VTuber. Kobo Kaneru, much like her outfit, is not too busy. With an avatar that looks like a cock pissing upwards and letting gravity do the rest, she does VTuber stuff, I guess. Here she is advertising a Kobo branded scooter. That way, as you commit knife crimes in London, the police know who to ram off the road the hardest. Placed firmly in the shit category on this clip alone. I was surprised when I saw a VTuber called Peko openly stating that they work for USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency. I was shocked to see that USADA Peko is her full name, but it made sense considering you need to be on drugs to enjoy any of this. Kuzuha is our first husbando of the list, as girls need something to slam clams over too. His bio has an affiliation part that makes it sound like he's a member of the Bloods gang or Al-Qaeda. You'll notice that I'm being particularly nice about Kuzuha, and that's because I recognise that insulting teenage girls' favourite VTubers is about as dangerous as flicking a polar bear's scrotum, aka something you only get to do once. Returning to a place where they don't just make up noises and call it a language, we have Fillian, the little gremlin. I feel that we are about to see the first person enter the base level. This is due to a multitude of factors. The most important one is that she falls on her head, and that is universally funny no matter what. As unequivocally the VTuber incarnation of Mr. Bean, Fillian is capable of doing the impossible, and that's as a triumphant uniter, by simply using the word frick instead of fuck.
You frick! Oh, frick!
After thousands of years of tribal violence, empire invasions, conquest, colonialism, terrorism, deliberate famines, 2 world wars, and an often explosive relationship, if you walked into a pub in the British Isles and Ireland and said the word frick instead of fuck, only then would Ireland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland and England finally unite in the sole desire to beat you to death.
Can I have a baby shampoo, please? You can fuck off for a stop.
Here was me thinking that all VTubers were the same, only to learn of this specimen. Zilva K is a Mexican VTuber, and very much after my own heart, for obvious reasons.
Tengo 5 segundos para hablar. ¿Qué quieres que te diga?
Dile todo lo que tengas que decir en 5
El
segundos.
gobierno te miente, te roba todo el dinero, los impuestos y todo el pedo. ¡Ah!
Based. Shxtou at first I thought was called Shxtou, but then I realised the X is actually a censor mark, as the real name is Shxtou. If you think that joke was easy and an incredibly low bar, then you'd be absolutely correct. Shxtou is also considered a vsinger, something that was surprisingly common the more I delved into the subject. Whether VTubers are encouraged to take singing lessons, or if through academies they are selected for having singing abilities, I don't know. It's not even a joke, it's just a question actually. In Shxtou's case, I think it's quite charming, and he sings in kind of an ASMR way, not to be confused with ALS, which is what God gives you in the next life if you watch VTubers. ASMR for the unacquainted is kind of like when someone whispers in your ear, a bit like P. Diddy's new cellmate. I find the vsinger phenomenon particularly fascinating, as I came across these clips of stadiums and events where you can pay good hard money to see absolutely fuck all. This one somehow escaped my notice, where the big reveal is that his hair comes up, and he goes from a school shooter to a kawaii school shooter. Mori Calliope, Kratos' daughter,
Calliope, where are you?
follows in the long line of VTubers seemingly being forced at gunpoint to make music. She appears to do advertiser-friendly horrorcore rap, which is a bit like a square-wheeled car or a pregnant virgin. Above all, I respect the hustle, based. Nemu the Space Cat I have to be particularly careful about. The British and Argentinians have a very fraught relationship, I believe over penguins, and thus I will take a measured and diplomatic response when discussing their most popular VTuber. Only joking. This proved once and for all that Hitler did manage to escape to Argentina, as he's the only person in human history diabolical enough to come up with this thing. On account of speaking all funny, I can't really piece together Nemu the Space Cat. There is one big positive out of this, and that's the proof that Argentina is marginally less hostile than the vacuum of space. I love you really, you have great taste in music. Being a part of the lewd streamers category, which to the layman may sound a bit more interesting, but what lewd means in the context of VTubers is what's considered risque to 8-year-olds. Namely, hand-holding and giggling at anything remotely phallic, which is what I've named my VTuber wave rollout. I can only assume that based on there being a funny moments video, that is just an hour of her absolutely fucking catapulting a seal. Next up, we have Hanser, who streams on Bilibili, which is the sound those pages made in the Middle East before they exploded. Hanser, it must be stated, is Chinese. That's not the joke. This was a clever way for the Chinese Communist Party to find out who needed their social credit bottomed out at the depths of hell. The one thing that I commend Hanser and many Chinese streamers for, please don't murder me, is the lack of stupid animals, besides of course cat girls, as come on now. With the largest population in the world, and thus the highest density of degenerates, catgirls are bound to appear in the same way that seagulls gravitate to fish and chip shops, and internet personalities to miners. I thought I'd do another bloke, so here's Vox Akuma. In his bio it says he's part of the 4th Wave, which kind of sounds like one of those Russian Storm Z battalions wading into machine gun fire. He is apparently a demon from the past who once enjoyed great power, so of course I thought he meant Margaret Thatcher. As my algorithm changed like Frankenstein's monster and began to only show VTubers, like the world's easiest game of Find the Virgins, I began seeing all of these emotional farewell videos and crying art, as I presumed a beloved figure named Ame had died. That's sad, I thought. I won't say anything out of respect. My real personality temporarily bleeding through the wolf character like a poorly made tampon. Then I saw that the VTuber Ame was just deciding to do her own thing, and I was like, oh, game on, motherfucker. Full name, Watson Amelia, her character is based on Watson, Sherlock Holmes' assistant, though it must be said that the character of Watson in the Sherlock Holmes novels is a surgeon and a biographer, not an investigator. Thus, her experience will come in handy as she attempts to stitch together a new career. Her bio listed one of her nicknames as the Ground Pounder, and just in time for the start of the NFL season. Expect to see Amelia be sent on power runs as she's averaged 4 yards a carry in college.
Great defensive scheme by Jim Johnson because he brought pressure, but he still had...
Continuing my ongoing feud with the country of South Korea, I thought I'd make fun of their VTubers, but it turns out that VTubing in Korea is still considered quite niche. I was quite frankly stunned to hear this, but I quickly figured out why. Notable VTubers mentioned online is a K-pop idol group, because of course it is. Known as a Seagay idol and put together by a popular streamer through a contest, where I assume they fought to the death with knives. After watching and listening to some of their music, I came to the realisation that the South Korean government is fully responsible for their lack of VTuber scene. As diplomatic tensions and negotiations continue with North Korea, the top brass decided that so long as VTubers exist in the South, the North Koreans would rather eat bark and MDF board than unify as a single country. Singing at a pitch that only dogs can hear, K-pop, I can say, is 100% not my thing. But I say that as someone who likes music that goes ow, my throat. I have to admit though that I really did love a certain part of the song, precisely at the 4:35 mark, and if you're wondering, that was precisely when it recommended me another video. Naturally, I showed my mother this V-idol group, and all she did was nod and turn to me and say, "So are they ugly then?" Then she proceeded, wine in hand and dog in lap, to say how they shouldn't care what people say and they should let their music do the talking, firmly putting Mother Wolf in the based category. Lastly, we have Projekt Melody. From my research, I can firmly conclude that it's not just radioactive substances that can obliterate your chromosomes at a molecular level, but VTubers as well. Projekt Melody enjoyers suffer the same level of brain damage as if they were dangled over the exposed reactor at Chernobyl. With an audience of entirely 14-year-old boys, I'm not going to deny that if I was 14 I'd be all over this shit, but on account of having a fully developed and admittedly already degrading brain, I don't really see the appeal, as you'd be surprised to learn that I have indeed seen a naked woman before, and all it cost me was pretending to be an artist and going to one of those classes. Ah, marvellous, my masterpiece is complete. Based on the feed of videos I had to scroll past, I'm assuming that Melody is an animal, but instead of an orca, bear or rabbit, she's a horny goblin. Her fanbase is known as the Science Team, thus I can only make the deduction that due to poor ventilation in the laboratories, her audience has constantly suffered more brain damage, but this time from industrial fume inhalation. This little dive into the VTuber world has been extremely enlightening, so I've decided to incorporate as many aspects of these popular creators as possible as to capture their viewing audiences. Okay everyone, please huff paint now. May I introduce to you, Wolf-chan, the King Shag.
こんにちは変態たち。生産的な仕事を過ごしていることを願っています。私は可愛い狼です。私の会社の支配者のためにあなたのお金が必要です。私と絆を築いてください。私を愛して。私にはあなたに歌を歌う法的義務があることをお知らせできることを嬉しく思います。聞いてください。さもないと彼らは私を撃ちます。つまり卒業するという意味です。私のストリームをご覧いただきありがとうございます。私の狼ブランドのフレッシュライトを買ってください。
I hope you enjoyed my fun little video making fun of you all, and in the likely chance that one of the people I discussed watches this video, then I'd personally, from the bottom of my heart, like to say sorry. Sorry I didn't say it earlier! Fuck it, that's a wrap.